So, Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's a very, very divisive movie. Very, very divisive. I admittedly am not a Spider-Man fan. I do not care for Spider-Man particularly. Not really. Um, a lot of Spider-Man fans hated this movie and like really trashed it. So my reasoning was if people who like Spider-Man hate this movie, maybe someone who hates Spider-Man will like this movie. And you know what? I will go on record saying Amazing Spider-Man 2 is probably my favorite Spider-Man movie. That is a low fucking bar. Because I really didn't like any of the Spider-Man movies before this one. Yes, even your precious Spider-Man 2, I didn't care for. Doc Ock was awesome, but he was only in like 20%, 25% of the movie. The rest of it was just... That was the rest of the movie was just him powerless and crying. It was, and you know what? I know like the relationship thing is kind of like Spider-Man's bag, you know? But maybe that's why I don't like him. I don't want to read a book about a guy constantly crying about how his current supermodel fuck buddy how she isn't working out right now. I'm grossly misrepresenting Spider-Man. I'm just not a big fan of the guy. I think Daredevil's way cooler. Like Daredevil's just a way better version of Spider-Man, in my opinion. Anyway, on to the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I like this movie. It wasn't like a great film. It wasn't, it was okay. The main problem with this film is that it is completely and utterly tonally inconsistent in every conceivable way. Every scene in this movie feels like it's from a completely different film. It's got like all the Peter and Gwen stuff. It's like from an indie romantic comedy, like 500 Days of Summer. There's a weird like spy stuff, like with all the stuff with his dad is like from a weird spy movie. All the villain stuff is like straight out of Joel Schumacher Batman. It's goofy shit. It's totally out the window. There's no consistency to any scene in this movie. But other than that, it was okay. I know Andrew Garfield gets a lot of shit, apparently. I think he's the best Spider-Man ever, out of the two of them. Yeah, he's way better than Tobey Maguire. He is, I think, really good casting as Spider-Man. He has good chemistry with Gwen Stacy, probably because they actually are dating in real life. He's good. All the casting in this movie, I think, was really good. The guy who played Harry Osborn was awesome. He's from Chronicle, so he could do a fucked up super character. I think Jamie Foxx was cool. He was creepy, but that was kind of the point. By far the best acting job I've ever seen in this film or any other had to go to Paul Giamatti for his 15 minutes of insane ranting as the Rhino. He knew he only had 15 minutes to work with, but he rang the shit out. He fucking milked those scenes for all they're worth. He was awesome. And definitely, probably the only reason. Just YouTube his scenes, and you don't need to see the movie, because Paul Giamatti's the man in this. It was okay. I'm going to keep saying it's okay over and over again. Let's talk about things I didn't like about this movie, because I think that Peter comes across as a bit of an asshole in this movie. Spoiler alert, Harry's dying of Green Goblinitis. Norman Osborn died of Green Goblinitis. Does anyone really buy that? Does anyone really think he's dead? No. He's definitely coming back. But Harry Osborn is slowly turning into a goblin-like creature and dying. And the only cure is located in Spider-Man's blood. So he goes to his friend Peter and he's like, "You take pictures of Spider-Man. Can you hook me up?" And then Peter's like, "No." And then Harry's like, "Please." And Peter's like, "I'll ask him." And then he comes back as Spider-Man. He's like, "No." And I'm just like, what? Come on, dude. I know the last time Spider-Man gave his blood to Oscorp, it resulted in a lizard monster. So you can argue that he doesn't want to make another villain. It's not. Is he worried that the spider blood is going to kill Harry because Harry's dying already? I can only assume he's worried about creating another villain. But that contradicts a little bit later in the movie, because Max Dillon becomes Electro, and Spider-Man knew Max Dillon, like he saved him and remembered him as like this kind of awkward, nerdy guy that he saved him. And then he sees him walking down the street as Electro, being like, "Arr, I don't know what's going on with me." Spider-Man stops him, and then doesn't even do anything. He doesn't check up on Max Dillon. He doesn't like try to intervene in his life. He doesn't try to help him. He's just like, "Well, my job is done. Have fun with Professor fucking Insano." Yeah. Max Dillon gets sent to Ravencroft, where he's experimented on by a mad German scientist, who literally, like, he's pretty much the medic from Team Fortress 2. Like, it's fucking ridiculously hysterical. In both a laugh at it and laugh with it kind of way. So apparently Peter Parker doesn't care about villains, but also doesn't care about his friend. And Gwen is going to Oxford, and he's like being emotionally manipulative and like making her stay, and he's very selfish. And I just don't like Spider-Man. I mean, I think Andrew Garfield is a good Spider-Man. I just think Spider-Man's kind of a douche in this movie. So that was a big problem for me. Disapproving Dennis Leary. The ghost of Dennis Leary shows up to just like, disapprove of Peter Parker. Very funny. Not supposed to be. Max Dillon, it's weird. Like, he's very mentally ill even before he gets his powers, and then that gets exacerbated when he becomes Electro. This movie, he was good though. He was okay. He had a cool visual, and the score. I liked the score of this movie. I think Hans Zimmer is one of the best. A lot of people like to hate on the electronic music, but come on, what else are you going to give Electro if not electronic music? I thought it was cool. And very good use of motif. I love motifs. Very good use of motif, especially for Electro. But yeah, I don't see what the big problem with this movie is. I think people are just kind of spoiled by the Avengers and the Marvel movies, and everyone's just like, because those movies are great. So people expect everyone to be great. But also, people are like, apparently if it's not in a wider cinematic universe, people are just pissed about that in general. Like, people are already going into this movie with a bad attitude because it's not part of the Marvel universe. At least, maybe some people are. I'm assuming some people are. I read that on the internet that people are pissed about that. And, like, does Spider-Man really need to be part of the Avengers? Like, what? Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Ant-Man, Vision. That's not enough? You need fucking Spider-Man in there, too? You need Wolverine in there, too? No, those two are fine in their own things. X-Men doesn't make sense in the Marvel Universe anyway, because why do people hate mutants but love Fantastic Four? Those should stay separately, I think. That's just my opinion. I think they're cool in their own little universes. But I digress. Let me get my bearings. Apparently this movie has a very emotional effect on me. For a movie I really don't care about, apparently I'm getting very passionate about it. It was okay. If you get the chance to see it, check it out. Don't go out of your way to see it. Don't spend more than $1. That's not what I did. Oh, let me just get into Green Goblin really quick. I thought at the end when Harry becomes, spoiler, when Harry, even though it was on all the fucking posters, when Harry becomes Green Goblin, I thought it was awesome. I was cringing, he, in all the images of it online, he looks really bad, but I thought he was really creepy. I thought it was it was the most like the Green Goblin's ever been like the Green Goblin of the comics. He was with the fucking big toothy grin, and he was very smart, or at least by comic book standards, he's very smart because he puts together a Peter Parker Spider-Man, which is really obvious to anyone, but in comic book world, people don't realize Clark Kent's Superman. So at least Spider-Man has a mask. So he puts that together. But the only issue, it doesn't feel like there's too much villains in this movie, but when you think about it, there was too much villain in this movie. Like, the big fight with Electro at the end should have been the end. The Green Goblin stuff, maybe like him turning into the Green Goblin, should have been like a credit sequence. Because it feels very weird and forced and rushed. Like when he's turning into the Green Goblin, and he's like in the Sinister Six chamber, and he's like, I'm turning into a goblin. And then like he just crawls into the Goblin Glider. Like for no reason. No reason. The door's just like, open up in the Goblin Glider, and he's like, well, might as well. I'm here. And like he puts the gear on, and for some reason, the gear heals his disease and stops him from dying. Why didn't Harry Osborn just put that suit on in the beginning instead of injecting himself with radioactive spider blood? I don't know. I felt like this script was very slapdashed, you know? So, all in all, the advertising. I think everyone can agree the advertising hurt this movie way more than it helped. Like Rhino over advertised, Green Goblin over advertised. A lot of Gwen Stacy's spoiler alert. Gwen Stacy's death was in the trailers, like the scene of him holding her, going like ah, was in the trailers. Some of them. The advertising killed this movie, or didn't kill it, but hurt it significantly. I think future generations, when they see this movie for the first time, will be kinder to it than the people who kind of went in there expecting all this crazy. Like the Rhino should have been a surprise. Doc Ock's tentacles and the vulture wings should have been a surprise. But other than that, it was okay. How many times can I say it? My review is going to be very mediocre because this movie is very mediocre. With the exception of some funny, goofy scenes, and I think the performances are really good in this movie. Like the relationship with Harry and Peter, for something, apparently they haven't seen each other in 10 years, but it felt very natural. I like them together. So, bottom line, if it's on HBO and you have HBO, watch it. But other than that, I'd say skip it. So thanks for listening. This is going to go on a little longer because I pressed the wrong button.